Good morning. So, good morning. You know, sun's coming up. Rained a little bit last night. Not too bad. So, every day, as I previously stated, and I always pretty much try to hold to my word, buying, like end of the world scenarios, which I was unable to accomplish. Can't beat an asteroid. I want to talk about this. It's called anger. Now, some of you might know me. Most people watch this video don't. But I have what you call a bit of an anger problem from time to time. And when I was younger, that anger led me to all kinds of crazy scenarios. Like you never even. And I was good at it. I get angry about something and it became my armor. And as long as I was angry about it, you weren't telling me nothing and you weren't moving me 1 inch like a mule. Like you. And if I'm mad about it until I'm done being mad about it, you all can just deal with the fact I'm mad about it. I'm a very violent person. You could say I've walked around and offered a few people a fair fight. As I got older, I started trying to hold it in more. Anger. You guys relate to this at all? We're just going to have a little story time this morning. I think that I'm just going to keep approaching this differently because if I keep switching it up, then I keep switching it up. And as long as I keep switching it up and staying unique in exactly what I'm trying to say to you, I think that the responses that all of you give me will help me get better. This is like reverse psychology flipped you in so I could heal myself type of situation. You get it? Or you could look at it as I've moved off the path somewhere else a little bit, and now I'm simply sharing the difference in the past and whether or not there's similarities, and then maybe I can figure out how to create a path from my path to your path, and you can create one over to me. Because in some cases, some people think I'm lost, and other people I think they're lost. So maybe homes in between. So anger. There's a good anger and a bad anger. Both of them are tied to your ego. The bad one is triggered by all three fears. It's there's like this underlying. Listen, I know what the problem is. It's fear. Ain't nothing else. People aren't afraid will stand up for themselves so quick. It's just fear. I only got to beat fear, and I only got to do it for 61 days, as aforementioned in my last video. You only got to do this for 61 days straight, and on day 62, it's going to come natural. And you say, "What are you talking?" Well, one of my fears is speaking in front of large groups of people. I get anxiety like you would not believe when I have to talk to more than 5 people at a time. And it puts me on guard. And then I get angry really easy and irritated because of fear. And it's the social one. There's the fear of loss of things, the fear of loss of self, and the fear of death. Those are three fears, right? We're just going to keep bringing it up. Loss of self is really weird. And it's a backwards fear because it's like, for myself on my journey, if there's a fear that I find within myself, I go after it like a SWAT team. Just as hard as I can push into it until not only is it not frightful, but I learn something. And some of those lessons have been the scars on my body. Some of those lessons have been the scars on my heart. But I don't I don't like being treated like that. And that feeling of fear pisses me off. And every time I get afraid of my own fear, I lean into it. So, positive anger. No, there's no positive anger. It's a secondary emotion. It's based on one of your first emotions. I understand the psychology. You want to argue psychology and Sigmund and Freud and all these other people that have written books and none of them even had a real life experience between them? Sure, the similarity in patterns, even if they never understood whys. They've explained the whys, but it's weird because if you put another person in the exact same situation, set of circumstances that they say this person will then become this based on the patterns, how come it's not 100% true and everybody goes, that's how psychology works? I've taken the time to study it enough to where I didn't understand it. So then I kept studying it some more so I could begin to understand the basics of what the concepts were that people consider psychology as a science as a whole. There's basic building blocks, and some of the basic building blocks, just like math, they don't add up. They don't add up. They say circumstance over spirit, environment over inner. They say outer influence over inner guidance. It's really weird that one of the things that I think is a really big lie, that any kind of power that belongs to you is outside of yourself, or you have to get outside justification, notification, or gratification to even feel happy inside based on an outside source, be it concept, religion, I don't care what it is. And it's funny that psychology, the very thing that's presented us as humans, as the study of the mind, is built on building blocks based on the concept that you already have to get external validation, or you're a product of external validation and circumstance, and somehow this is who you're going to be. They don't even offer an alternative. They just say this is truth. It's just like, and I'm going to get hell for this, but there's been this huge controversy. 1 times 1 can't equal 1. Correct. You can't time something by itself. Show me that as an applicable thing in real life. The difference is by changing the language of the sentence, it's then viewed in a correct light in which everybody doesn't go, oh, you're such a fucking dumbass. Oh, language. And it's this. 1 is always 1. If it's not a 1, then it doesn't exist and it's a 0. And if it doesn't exist as a 0, then technically the concept itself of what should have been isn't even real. Here we go. And this all ties into anger. I promise I'm going to get there. I just got these little ways that I around, but we'll get there. 1 is always 1. 1 of the number 2. Then we're talking about the number 2. But for some reason, now we have 2 languages and 2 ways to say it. Do you see the correlation between the 2 and how confusing it is to think of 1 times 1 is 1? No, 1 equals 1. 1 is 1. It's a solid whole number called 1. And then there's a solid number 2. But why would there be created an entire another language and set of parameters using words that don't mean what they mean? They do not use times as multiplication. I don't even kind of care how you can write all the math out. So can I. I can follow their formulas perfectly. Promise. But it's the language itself that's the trap. So why would they add on an extra set of parameters to understand the same concept, but you have to understand it like that? Capitalism. Timesing, the idea of multiplication, of having more. The very thing that they fearmonger. Isn't it coincidental that not only is it say this is exactly how you have to be in our psychology science, but then in our math science, you are poo-hooed and yelled at if you argue the fact that 1 can only be 1. You can take away from it, make it a 0. You could take pieces of it away, but the second it's not a whole one, is it real anymore? Like, if we're really going to talk words versus math, your words are what make up the math. Math doesn't make up words. Math is a formula that was used to try to describe the things that we couldn't understand and quantify everything around us in a way so we could control it, at least with the thought process of understanding it through our understandings. Let me say that. But one is the number one, two is the number two, three is the number three. Oh, but you can do anything you want in reality. Anything you want. But just try doing math by saying one is the number one. See how many different ways it affects numbers and the way that they go together or the way that it's talked about. And if you start talking about math, not, well, is this or is, just use the right words. Look up the definitions. And when you find blaring things, you're like, this is the definition. That's not what it means. Why do people believe this is truth? That's not the definition. That's not what it means. Why is there a lie there? You get it? Anybody that really does math, you're pissed right now. Oh, you're mad. You're telling everybody how dumb I am. I get it. But you can't even control magnetism. Your math doesn't account for magnetism. It doesn't account for the duality of magnetism. It doesn't account in any way, shape, or form for the side products of magnetism. One of them being gravity. Gravity is a production of magnetism. Light itself. Why does it move? Magnetism. These are basic building blocks of the entire universe that your math can't compute. I got math for you. Why is one only one? Riddle me this. Why is one only one? Oh, you're going to hate me. It's like a bad dad joke. When you add to it, and then it becomes two. And you can add to it and make three. You're like, I could just do 2 plus 1. And why do I have to do 1? Well, the number 2 represents 2 ones. And the number 3 represents 3 ones. But they all still, when broken down, go back to 1. And you can add as many of them as you want and make as many numbers as you want and show me the different ways you cheated so you didn't have to do all the addings of the ones and you took it up to 1,000 and how it went to 1,000,000 over here. You can show me all those things, but you can't argue that the only way that you got to that number is by continuing to only add ones to it and using the different kinds of math to explain how you did quickly like a computer and added all these different ones to get. Every number is still just ones. It's that many ones. They don't speak about math like this. They talk about fractions. Show me a fraction of something that's real and alive. Because if we're talking about dead things, things that aren't alive, what's not alive? What's not completely covered in life that we experience? And then, just because I'm just feeling myself punching high right now, air's a liquid. Has anyone stopped to consider the fact that we live in a liquid environment? Chemicals are released into that liquid that allows us to breathe in that liquid as we walk on a different, harder liquid encased in another liquid. And then, if we want to, we can go diving in a thicker liquid based on salt content and water content and living creature content. Do you realize that like the denser the liquid is, the more life there is? Have you noticed that? Like you think there's a lot of things alive on the like the land underneath in the water? Why is all of this relevant to anger? Why is any weird concept that I just shared with you that you definitely probably don't agree with, why is any of that related to anger? Because I came up with all those weird concepts not being mad. We could start there. We could talk about that. But really, what we could talk about is good to bad anger. And that's where all that weirdness just came from. Good anger. Being mad at the exceptions that are allowed so reality can shift the way of the general mass. Every time I read something or do a math equation or read a chemical formula, whenever I do anything, if I find a discrepancy within the situation itself, but I'm unable based on my unspecified knowledge of a subject, I write the whole subject off. I'm sorry, I don't even the second I saw one thing wrong in politics, it was a blatant lie. And you know, I don't do politics. That's a lie. I do politics. You have the left wing and you have the right wing, and they're attached to the same bird, and the bird has not changed in all the presidents you've ever seen alive. It's only gotten sicker. So the idea that there's opposing forces for government, that's a lie. Or that you can change it by voting or any of the things that all of you have your parents told you and their parents told them and so on and so forth since the creation of the slave system, it's a lie. And it pisses me off. And so what I've been basically doing is this case study because I've been so mad about it on what's wrong and what's a lie and what's truth and how do you figure it out and where do you get your information and how do you back check it and does it actually exist in real life or is it just a concept? Check this out. For instance, quantum computing, which is the new leading edge, cutting edge thing, right? The math that's being done there with the new understanding of physics based on what CERN did, don't forget CERN's involved in this. Don't forget the World Health Organization is all wrapped up in all of this together, right? But by understanding how to create a vibration with information, so when you do the opposing thing, it creates that vibration back and you can gather all the information off that vibration. That spits on normal math. Do you realize that there's a section of humanity that understands real math and they have blatantly done everything they can to dumb down the entire system so you can't grasp the concepts that actually exist in any way, shape, or form. Because if you do, they will lose control. That's what I'm so pissed off about when I try to define it. Because here's the thing anger is a secondary emotion. It's like your soul, like it hit its tentacles. Think of your soul as like all these tentacles, like a giant multi layered octopus, right? And all of a sudden, one of them gets cut off. Anger, right? Immediately, bam. Why? Fear of loss. You just lost your arm. Metaphysically, in a conversation, a relationship, a job, doesn't matter. You stubbed your toe. There's all these different reasons why you react, right? Because you just are like mad about it. But the first thing is fear. And two of the fears that it produces creates humans to act in a crazy way. And one of the fears that it produces, if you can stay in that fear and use that fear, becomes righteous. I'm going to break it down after I give you my little weird spiel. I'm just on it this morning. When we get angry at someone else, it's the fear of loss, right? We're going to lose. And someone treats us bad, we get angry, right? Like, When someone dies, we get sad, but sometimes we also get angry because there's 5 steps to acceptance. And the first one is always, I believe it's disbelief, then anger, then denial, then sadness, then acceptance. I think I might even have got that list right. I ain't looked it up so long. It's just something I remember. The 5 stages of grief, right? So the thing is this crazy world, anger is also a shield. And this is the part that psychology won't talk about. They go out of their way to make anger a bad thing. It's how they're dumbing down people's ability to stand up for themselves. I know it sounds like giant government can just shut up and listen. If I was wrong, I wouldn't have all the conflict I have in my life. That's how I know I'm winning. And my anger is the reason I'm making these videos. The anger is the reason I've done all the research. The anger is why every day I get up and I don't buckle down for nobody and I don't bend one knee. I don't even bend a thought. Because that anger isn't fear for me. There it is, right? When you're angry and fear for someone else, it can become your righteous sword and shield on which you can defend another person, that you can defend a concept, that you can defend a higher idea. Anger isn't violence. All you, I'm not going to say it because I don't want to be rude, but all of you people that refuse to heal and therefore have flipped the script on the rest of the world, and now we're supposed to deal with your emotional tirades of nonsense for no other reason than you feel entitled to not heal, and somehow that's my problem. It's the craziest sickness I've ever seen in my life. I believe they call it the woke movement. I've never seen such a game of make believe. It's like when a rich person talks about how good they are and they buy themselves a Tesla or an electric car of some sort and they plug it into the power grid so they can charge it, so they can save the environment, not knowing that they killed 300 times the amount of the environment that they would have killed driving a gas car their whole life, just so the batteries could be made for their one car that they will replace at least twice in their lifetime. So that's 3 times. So what are we looking at? Like 30 times the amount of shit, 900 times the amount to the fucking world over a battery that's shit, that doesn't even stay charged. What's the point of having an energy source that doesn't stay energy? So all of you out there got your electric bikes and your electric cars and all your things, and you think you're doing something right. It's the most expensive lie of make believe I have ever seen in my life. Ever. And you should be ashamed of yourselves. I'm going to call it how I see it. You don't like me about it? That's cool. I walk. I've walked over 180 miles this year. I don't care. I'm only doing that because my health ain't the greatest, and if I don't keep up and try to stay in shape, then my back will probably give out. And so that's the battle that I face every day. And so it's not even if I want to be dedicated to exercise, I don't have a choice. I have to stay healthy so I don't break down and end up in a wheelchair. So don't feel like I'm trying to be like, well, I'm better than you, because I'm not. But I wouldn't drive an electric car. Not for any reason. So anger is your fear. You're afraid you're going to die, so you get angry, you get defensive. Emotionally, you think you're going to die. You think you've lost something. Somehow your status has changed. Someone did you wrong. They did you dirty. They're backstabbing, they're conniving, and here comes the anger. And that's because you don't want to deal with the fact that probably you already knew you shouldn't have been in that situation. I'm not going to let you be a victim. You created your entire life, and whatever the circumstance was that pissed you off, you're the only one that participated to the point that it happened. And that accountability for yourself is why the anger that you feel doesn't seem to do anything positive for your life. You can't do anything positive with anger that's self-directed. And no matter how much you think you are justified in being mad at somebody else, they don't give a fuck. You're only mad at yourself. You're the only one holding the anger in. And that's kind of my point, is if it's anger that goes inwards, it's bad. If it's anger that goes outwards, it's good. And what I mean by that is like someone does you dirty. And so you go and help 10 people because it pissed you off. Well, that person wants to be a fucking dick. Watch this. And you just help 10 random people. You hear about a situation that's so bad that you can't believe it. And you know in your heart, no matter what, you're just going to go stand up and deal with it. I don't give a fuck if someone needs help doing work. If you got to go stand on a line against a whole group of people, I don't care what it is. It pisses you off and you fix it. It set you off that someone thought that they could act in such a way against other people that it was okay and no one was going to pop a fucking grape. That's when you stand up and get gangster. And I'm not advocating violence, like all the violence is why I advocate peace. But for me, I can pretty much just argue somebody in a hole without having to put my hands on them. I've gotten very good at using anger to direct very harsh truths towards a person and leave them fucking reeling, even if I didn't lay a finger on them. Truth is truth is truth. And if the reason you're angry is because truth's not fucking being truth, that's the catch right there. If truth isn't truth, get fucking angry about it. And if it's something you created, do not. And you're like, what the fuck? This is your message about anger? Yes, because I need to help you identify what anger is. And I need to show you that there's polar opposites of everything. And they keep telling you it's only over here. And I'm literally living on the polar opposite. I'm literally hitting the drum every beat. Perfect synchronicity with the bullshit over here. For every action, there must be an equal and opposite reaction. This is the law of karmic everything. If there's bad anger, there must be good anger. If there's bad sadness, there must be good sadness. If bad things happen to you, there must be good things that happen to you. That's how it works. And the only way someone can beat you is if they can change your perception of what's in front of you. That's the only way that anyone can control anyone in this world when you get right down to it. If you can out perception someone so they believe your perception over somebody else's, you can get over on a person temporarily, but that will always trigger the anger, the righteous anger, the fixing what is wrong. I don't know who came up with the plan to turn everybody into cowards and timid and weak. I don't know who thought that one up. I'm still working. Listen, someday you're going to see this weird face on the back of a book or three. And I'm going to have all these detailed case studies of things that I've looked into and done like social experiments on with only the intent to either prove or disprove some really big truths that exist in the world right now. And at some point, I'll show you. It'll happen. It's coming. I have nothing better to do than study and understand and listen and learn. I have nothing better to do. I've never found a higher calling in my life than to learn. So please understand, If you're mad at yourself, regardless of the lies you've told yourself, that's a you problem. And if you're mad at something that's going on and you want to fix it, you can absolutely use your anger to properly fix a situation, because anger is nothing more than energy. And if you walk in with a thundercloud energy, if you walk in as a tsunami and you just sit down, people can feel that energy. People understand. They don't need to be told. And if instead you clearly and decisively speak on a subject that's the problem and what's going on and why you're angry about it, but the anger is what fueled you to get the fuck up and do something about it. The illusion of anger being only one thing instead of duality is the point of this video. It's the trigger. If you can't do violence, you're not peaceful. If you can't choose violence, you're not peaceful. If you can't make the decision to stand up for someone, even if it's yourself, you're not peaceful, you're harmless. You are perfectly molded to be controlled and manipulated. You're easily swayed. Your kindness disassembled and used. Peaceful means I will punch you in the mouth until you can't speak anymore if you intrude upon my peace. And if you step over that line, the devil comes with me. We're rocking that ass. That righteous anger right there, that line in the sand that takes you from harmless to peaceful. And I don't even mean you got to punch somebody in the mouth. Like, if you can't even stand up verbally and go, you know what, fuck you, you're a fucking idiot. I can't stand who the fuck you say you are, and you need to just get the fuck out of here right now before I put my hands on you. If you can do that, then you're peaceful. If you can't do that, you're harmless and you're being controlled. And that level of understanding of anger, I think, is super important for everybody to understand. It's okay to be angry. And I'll argue with you about it.